find the slope of a line when you're just given 2 points on the line. So here we go, we've got -2, -5, and 1, 1. The main thing that you need is this equation right here, and I'd like to just simplify it. If we could just think of it as m equals y minus y, and x minus x is on the bottom. If we could think of it like that, maybe it won't be too overwhelming with those subscripts on there. And we'll talk about how to use it here in just a second. Here we go. First off, let's go ahead and take a look at the first point right here. This is an x and this is a y. So since this is a y, let's plug this -5 in for our first y. So let's just go ahead and write -5 right there. This is a minus sign, so go ahead and write your minus sign. And now let's go over and look at the second point right over here. This is an x and this is a y. Well, the y value is +1, so we'll just put +1 right there. Go ahead and put it in your fraction bar. And since I started with -5 for my y point, since I started here, I need to go back and start with my x's here also. This is a -2, so I'll put -2 on the bottom, and that would be for our x value. Okay. See this minus sign? Go ahead and put the minus sign in, and my x value on the other point is a 1. Now we just do the two subtraction problems, and we've got our slope. -5 minus 1 is -6. -2 minus 1 is -3. And -6 divided by -3 is +2. So my slope is +2, or you could write it as a fraction 2/1. Okay. Let's go through and do one other, and this is more the example of why we use this equation. What if we have 2 points that are so big on there we couldn't put it on a graph? Well, let's go through and use it again. M equals y minus y over x minus x. This is my x, this is my x, this is my y, and this is my y. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Let's just go ahead and start right here. So my y is -26. Put in your subtraction sign. You always have to put that in. And now we can plug in +70 because it's a +70. I do want to say if for some reason there's a negative over there on the second one, then you would have to actually plug in a -70, and it looks like this, but that's completely normal. Okay, but because it's a +70, we'll just leave that just like this. Come back through and let's grab our x values. Again, this is very important or else you'll mess up your slope. Since I started with this -26 on this point right here, I have to come back and grab its x value first. I have to do that or else it messes up the whole equation. And that's a +3 there. So let's go through and do this. That'll be -96 over -6. Well, that's going to make it a +16. So my slope is +16, or you could also refer to it as 16/1, although this is what most people want. Let's go back to this weird equation right here. If I called this point 1 and I called this point 2, that would make this my x2 and this would make my y2, and that's why I plugged in -5 for the y2. It's just basically saying, you know what, these 2 points come from the same ordered pair, and these 2 points, see the 1 and 1, that came from the same ordered pair. It's that order, and we don't really have to worry about that because when I said, you know what, since I started with a -5 here off of this point, come back and start with this -2 first. Come back with the x off of that same point to start down here on the bottom. And if you do that, you don't have to worry about messing up the order. And also, just to prove to you that it really doesn't matter which point you start with, let's go through and do the same equation a different way. Y minus y over x minus x. Instead of starting with the -5 right here, instead of starting with that -5, let's start with the +1. So it's 1 minus -5. And then let's come back here and plug in the 1 here for the x because I started this y with the 1, so I have to start with this x for the 1 there from the same ordered pair, minus, in this case, it's -2. And we get 6 over +3, which simplifies down to +2. See how we get the same slope no matter what we do? I just thought it'd be worthwhile to show you that, but that's the reason I don't worry about these subscripts too much. I just think of it as y minus y over x minus x. A couple of things to remember about finding this. First off, fractions are okay. In my two examples, we got it down to a nice integer, like 2. But we could have a fraction like 2/3 or a negative 2/3, or sometimes you'll see like a -4 over -1, and we kind of saw that in the previous example. When you get two negatives like that, they cancel out because it is division, and you could just think of it as 4 over 1 or 4. Okay, but fractions are fine. Don't be shy with fractions if you get it. Also, at times you'll get very strange slopes, and so it'll look like a very odd fraction. It doesn't mean you've done it wrong necessarily. It's just the nature of the problem. And now right here, sometimes you'll have a 0 in the slope. Like you'll come through and you remember we've got the y minus y over x minus x, and you might get a 0 on top, like 0 over, let's just say a 2. When you have a 0 on top, that automatically means that your m is going to be 0, because 0 divided by 2 is 0. That's also code for, hey, this is a horizontal line. And then one other thing, what if you actually got a 0 on the bottom? So here's your y minus y over x minus x. And let's just say you had a -3 over 0. When you have a 0 on the bottom, that means it's -3 divided by 0. You're going to get an error. So we're going to say it's undefined. And when you use this slang, this term undefined for the slope, then that basically is referring to a vertical line. Now let's stop and think about it. You can go down 3, but you can't go right or left at all because your run number is 0. And when you look up here at this one, you're not going up or down at all for your rise number. That's 0. You're just going to the right 2 and to the right 2, and that's the reason it's a horizontal line there. So that was a couple of extra points I just wanted to point out when you get into this for finding slope. Be careful of that error message. Just put down the slope is undefined, and when you get a 0 on top, instantly you know your slope is 0.